Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're reviewing New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, episode 110. Now if you haven't seen any of my videos before, I grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. Let's jump right into it. First match of the show, we get Shoto Uso going up against QT Marshall. This is one that's been being hyped for the past few weeks. QT called out anybody in the locker room, which brought out Shota. They set up this match. I thought this was a really good match. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record if you watch these a few times, but Shota, to me, and someone else we're going to talk about here in a minute, Shota is a guy who I could obviously see being a future IWGP World Champion, being a future IWGP Champion. He's got all the tools and the talent to make it very far. And not just his look, but his ring style. He reminds me so much of Tanahashi. And I know Tanahashi's probably a massive influence on him. I mean, how could he not be? It would be like a wrestler now in America not saying that someone like John Cena was an influence on him. It's just not fathomable for someone coming up now to not have that as one of their heroes. This is a really good match. QT is a little underrated as a wrestler. I kind of give New Japan a little bit of crap for how they treat QT Marshall. He's treated more importantly on Strong than he is in his home promotion, AEW. But it's not because he's a bad wrestler, it's just because of the optics. If someone's a jobber or a guy that loses a lot on one show, and then on your show, you treat him like he's a world beater, that's a lot of difference. It makes your show look lesser, in my opinion. No knock on QT himself. I think QT's really good. This is an awesome opening match. Shoto Uso picks up the win here. I'm going to give this one a 4. Then we get an unannounced segment where JR Kratos and Danny Limelight come out to the ring. Basically, they question why they weren't involved in the tag tournament. They call out Aussie Open. Aussie Open comes out, seems to agree, so we're setting up a future tag title match. I like that New Japan Strong is starting to weave a little bit more of these call-outs and these setups for future matches to make it not so much just a show of just matches. They're weaving some more stories in. And I know for a lot of the existence of New Japan Strong, they had to work within the confines of COVID restrictions. So I do like that now we're starting to see what I imagine was their plan all along, to have stuff like this on the show. Pretty cool segment there. Now going from that, we go into our next match, which is Ren Narita versus Juice Robinson. Ren Narita actually called out Juice Robinson on Twitter. Like that as well. Like that you're using all of your avenues to get matches going, to get interest on the show. Ren Narita, when I just talked about the other person in the beginning, is the other to Shota Uso. If Shota is the spiritual successor to Tanahashi, Ren Narita is the spiritual successor to Shibata, in my opinion. Just another great up-and-coming talent. We see the match get jump-started by Juice attacking Ren Narita on the way to the ring. He basically bloodies him up, hits him with some weapons, hits the referee, gets himself disqualified, so technically loses a match, but then Ren Narita is trying to get back at Juice. Juice grabs a microphone, says, hey, we can do this one of two ways. You can call me out right now and make it a no-DQ match, or you can let it go. And basically Narita implores the referee, even though he's bleeding somewhere high on the Muda scale. I would probably say near the top of the Muda scale. He looked like a bloody mess at this point. Probably like a 0.7. He does get the match restarted, which is restarted as a no DQ. Juice controls the majority of the match, but Ren Narita refuses to give up. It's that fighting spirit, and I know that's a cliche, that makes you believe in a guy like Ren Narita, that makes you want to be a fan of a guy like Ren Narita, because he won't give up. It's similar to what you would see in an Eddie Kingston or a Mick Foley back in the day, or even Shibata, where no matter what the odds were, they wouldn't give up. They could be beat to death, and as long as they had one drop of blood in them, they were going to fight. This was really cool. This is my favorite match of the show. Narita does eventually pick up the win. Technically 2 wins because he won by disqualification and then they started a second match. So technically he could say he has 2 wins over Juice Robinson. I'm giving this one a 5. Like I said, it was my favorite match of the show. I thought it was really awesome, showing a little bit tougher side of Narita, showing a viciousness to Juice Robinson we haven't necessarily seen yet. I mentioned this a little while ago. I wanted to see where the Juice Robinson and the Bullet Club character went and how he differed himself from the Juice that we've come to know and love over the last few years. This was one of the cases where both guys come out of the match with a clear path going forward, with them both looking better. Juice looks more dangerous, looks more violent. Narita looks tougher than he's ever looked. Again, absolutely love this match. Then we go into the main event of the show. We get Homicide and Wheeler Yuta, which I kind of think is kind of a weird team. Homicide's kind of on the periphery of the Blackpool Combat Club. He's best friends with Eddie Kingston, and he's worked some with and against the guys in the Blackpool Combat Club in New Japan, so it's kind of interesting how he's on that periphery. I'd love to see Homicide more in AEW. I know he does a lot with NWA, which is awesome. He's used in New Japan kind of randomly, which I love Homicide. I think he's a great wrestler. He's in that like missed generation or forgotten generation of guys who really set up what we have going on now. Guys that wrestled in mainly like TNA back in the day or Ring of Honor back in the day, where there weren't as many eyes on them, but they were absolutely laying the groundwork. Those two are going up against Jay White and Carl Anderson, representing the Bullet Club. This was a really solid match. I mean, how could it not be? All 4 guys involved are what I would consider really good wrestlers, really good storytellers. There's a lot that Jay White and Homicide have in common, and you wouldn't think that on the surface, but the way they structure matches, the way their emotion builds into the matches is very similar. Even if their ring style's different, you can see the backbone of it. It's kind of like saying, being that this is in October when I'm recording this, let's say you have 2 horror movies, Insidious and Halloween. 2 totally different movies, but the backbone is that they're built on horror. That's what Jay White and Homicide have in common. They're built on the way they tell a story is very similar, even if their ring styles is different. This was a fantastic match. Ultimately, the Bullet Club team picks up the win. We see Tom Lawler come down for distraction. Doc Gallows is out there. Afterwards, we get Lawler and Lawler and the West Coast Wrecking Crew come into the ring, help attack Homicide. They seem to be focusing on Homicide. Shoto Uso comes out to try and run him off. He gets a little bit of the beating too, just the numbers are too much for him to take. I would have liked they didn't say much about the pairing, why Team Filthy is working with the Bullet Club, other than they're both being portrayed as heels right now. You don't usually see even 2 heel factions in New Japan working together without there being a reason. Maybe the reason was to attack Homicide. Maybe we'll get that next week. I would have loved to see that here. Overall, I'm giving the match a 4. I thought it was pretty good. Overall, I'm going to give the whole card a 4. I thought it was some really good stuff. Like I said, the matches all were really high quality, especially the Narita and Juice Robinson match. I love the story they told there. Thought it was fantastic. Just an overall awesome show. I say this almost every week that I talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling. It is my favorite current wrestling show week to week because the quality is always up there, always at a high level. You're never disappointed with the show. You're never sad that you watch the show or some of the emotions you get from some other wrestling shows. Let's say like WWE, AEW. There's weeks where their shows are not good, sometimes even terrible. Even Impact. Impact has a similar thing where they're usually pretty good, but even Impact has weeks where they got a terrible show they put out. New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong seems to be the most consistently good show in all of wrestling, and if you're not watching it, first I'll thank you for watching this video. I don't know why you would watch this video if you don't already watch New Japan Strong, but I appreciate it if you do. You should definitely check it out. I highly recommend it. To me, this is the reason I keep my New Japan World subscription. This is why I pay the 999 yen a month, so I could watch this show every week, because it is that good to me, in my opinion. With all that being said, make sure you smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't, and if you made it all the way to the end, give me a shooter in the comments. Well, I don't know, that might get us flagged. Your comment might get flagged. So don't put shooter, let's put Shota, S-H-O-T-A, for shooter, Shoto Uso. Like I said, I don't want you guys to get any comment strikes or get it flagged. And I don't know if shooter is one of those terms that YouTube automatically flags. It seems like it might be. Anyway, with all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.